of shadows.
Hi, my angels, it's Hailey, Reese, and I hope that you guys are having a fantastic morning, afternoon, or night, whatever it is for you. I think your day is about to get a whole lot better because I am joined with Lana, my friend and medium, and she is just absolutely incredible. And she agreed to, well, it was actually something we were excited to do, to answer some questions about your mediumship, your life journey, the spiritual dimensions, and kind of all of the above. And so that's what we're going to be doing here today. Now, before we get into this video, I do want to mention that Lana has a YouTube channel of her own where she shares a ton of her experiences and different things that she's been through, messages from spirit, messages from the angels. So I will have a link to her YouTube channel at the very top of my description. After you guys are done watching this video, make sure you head on over to Lana's channel because you guys will not want to miss out on all those videos. And we have a ton of videos we're going to be doing together too. So make sure you guys are subscribed to Lana and subscribed here. And yeah, I'm excited.
I am too. Thanks for having me, Hills.
Of course. Do you want to quickly, for those who may have missed out on some other videos, just give a brief summary of who you are and what you do and your background?
Sure. My name is Lana. I'm a psychic medium from Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, and I've been working with spirit for quite a number of years. And my favorite part of my mediumship is my dead folk. I love working with the dead folk. I also work in many other different spirit dimensions with the angels and guides and higher ascended masters and kind of the whole spirit dimension. So I kind of go where I need to go when it comes to spirits.
Yeah, she's incredible. And what was so crazy too is when I first met Lana, she did a reading for me and she had no idea who I was, what I did, anything about me. And it was absolutely mind-blowing. Even to me, I've always believed in psychics and mediums and all of the above when it comes to that world and that realm. But you were the most, and I'm not even just saying this, accurate person I have ever met when it came to names and validations and people and places. I remember specifically, I gotta tell you guys this, I don't know if you remember telling me this, but my grandma and my grandpa, who had passed at the time, this is before Grams passed away, came through, and she goes, your grandpa just jumped to the other side of the room and says he's with your other side of the family, he's with your mom's side. And I was like, how would she know that my dad's mom passed away and my mom's dad passed away and they're in separate sides of the family? But I thought that it'd be really neat to answer some questions that I asked you guys to share with me on Twitter and also answer some questions that I think people just have in general when it comes to mediumship and what it is that you do. So let's get into it.
Very excited. I'm very open when it comes to my mediumship. I love questions.
Yeah.
Because I think it really helps bring a deeper understanding to how spirit works.
Absolutely. And if you guys have any video suggestions for Lana as well when you're done hearing this, you can head over to her channel and leave her a comment for a video that she may want to film for you guys if it's something that she's up to talking about, which I'm sure you will be.
Absolutely. Bring on the suggestions.
But one of the first things that I wanted to ask you, Lana, is do you remember your first experience with spirit? Like the very first time where you realized, wow, I'm communicating with something that most can't see and experience?
I think my awareness came, because I always been able to see. Mm-hmm. So, when I was aware that not everybody sees the way I see, it kind of took me back for a bit. Mm-hmm. But I think because I've always had an awareness, I don't have that one captured moment of, oh my God, I'm seeing, because I've always been able to see them. I think that a lot of my spirit experiences kind of stick out in my mind about, on my journey, especially when things were a little bumpy, spirits always appeared and kind of guided me through.
That's so interesting to think about because I've heard with some mediums, they had a little aha moment when they were a kid where it was like, wow, this is the pivotal moment for me. But it's interesting to hear that there are people like yourself who are just born with the gift and it's just something that's second nature to, or even first nature to you. Yeah,
it did evolve. How I work now is very different than how I worked in my teens or my 20s or even my 30s with spirit. How I work now is very different. So it does evolve and it's been evolving. And there were times in my life where I wasn't always giving readings or connecting the way I do, but I was very, very much connected. But I would have had to say after experiencing my own death, and I think when things kind of really opened up, and being able to see the dimensions, when you kind of look to your left and you can see a highway of spirit, I think that was a very huge moment where I was like, oh my goodness. Like,
yeah.
it was just profound to be able to see those dimensions the way I see them.
And to know that they truly exist, because even though you did have that experience where you passed and went up into the higher dimension, you could maybe take from that there's just that said one dimension, but to come down and be able to see that there are multiple dimensions where many beings exist, it's fascinating to hear about
absolutely. That. And I do believe very strongly that there are even more dimensions than I have access to.
Right.
You know, because Spirit's been gradually showing me more and more over the years. Like, for a long time, it was just the dead folk, me and my dead people.
Yeah.
You know, and as I've grown and trusted and developed and spent more time understanding Spirit, you know, the angelic realms have just been huge. And, you know, being able to work with animals and do animal communication, things just continue to evolve.
Right.
But the first time I ever heard an animal, Hailey, speak, I thought, this is when they're coming for me.
Oh my goodness.
This is when they're coming. This is when the white room, the padded room
they're
is
taking
coming.
you. Now you're
taking
talking
me. So it was, that was pretty huge, because all of a sudden, and I've always connected to animals. I've always loved animals. I grew up around animals on a little farm, and I've always loved animals. And then literally it was one day, the animal spoke, and I was like, pardon? And I started working with animals at an incredible level, being able to hear their voices and their thoughts, and I actually wrote my own animal communication program. It took me a little over a year, but I never in a million years. And there was that moment I thought, oh my gosh, this is it.
Yeah.
Right? So
that's so fascinating that you're able, that's something that she's able to do too, you guys, is as she mentioned, she can actually hear and communicate with animals. Like, she does healing with horses, and even when she came to my home, one of the first things she said about Blue is, oh, she knows she's a baby, and you've never met Blue, and that is just so her personality. She knows she's the baby of the house, and it's fascinating for people, especially who connect with their animals, and maybe sometimes are told by society, oh, it's just an animal. No, these are spiritual beings.
And animals come through in readings too. Like, animals, you know, because they had a soul, right? So they do come in readings all the time. But I think that was probably one of those moments where I was like, this is it. Because I have had a few moments where I thought, okay, they're coming for me.
Yeah.
I know it, but no. You know, all joking aside, I think that some, you know, humor does get me through some of the really interesting and wacky moments that Spirit and I do have together.
Well, yeah, something that's really interesting about Lana, you guys, I know you'd love to hear about this, is that Lana will be driving in her car, and all of a sudden a spirit hops in and tells her, I need you to go here, my loved ones are going to be here, and here's what I want you to say to them. And she has to go and do it.
It happens all the time, and you know, it slowed down a bit with the pandemic because I wasn't driving as much. But yeah, if I'm going to go and do a big platform event where, you know, there's going to be like an audience of people, dead people hop in. They often tell me what to bring to the event. My wife's going to be there. Can you grab this flower for me?
Oh, it gives me chills.
Yeah, or, you know, I've had, you know, children who have passed say, can you stop and get this for my brother? And, you know, it's just profound. They do hop in the car a lot.
Yeah.
And with the pandemic, I haven't been getting out as much. But whenever I do, Spirit utilizes that time and says, you know, can you go and run an errand or two for me? Yeah. And, you know, I'm like, oh. but I do. And it's always just so incredible. I know that, you know, somebody out there is going to get an incredible message.
Yeah. Well, that leads me into a question that I have for you. Have you ever had specific experiences where Spirit may have told you to communicate with somebody who may have been a skeptic or maybe didn't necessarily believe in mediumship? And were you nervous to go into sharing that message with them?
So I do. I have a very interesting concept with skeptics. You know, I think that to some degree it's good to be a skeptic because I think seeing a medium, there should be evidential mediumship, but not closed.
Right.
There's a difference. There's a bit of a difference. I do get my fair share of skeptics, and it's, you know, it's their experience, not mine, is kind of how I look at it. But Spirit does not send me to someone who is going to be nasty to me or who doesn't want to hear from their loved one. But Spirit also doesn't give you a whole lot of time to react. Right. I usually go up to you, hello, and and I just start chitter chatter, and there's no, like, there's that moment of deer in the headlights. Yeah. But when Spirit comes up to me with such evidence of who they are, like, you know, I come up to you with an item that was, you know, your favorite flower or your favorite cake or whatever it may be. Spirit is very, very powerful on the evidential mediumship, and they have to be, and that's kind of a rule that I have with them too, because we do have our rules and guidelines.
Absolutely, and they know on my channel that I have an uncle who has been more skeptical. He's open to the idea of it, but he also is very analytical and scientific, and he's done those, watch those videos, where they say, oh, people can read your body language, and that's how they know these things. And even when I was talking about my experiences with you, he was taken aback, and he said, that would be something I'm open to, because those are specifics, that you can't read somebody's body language and say, oh, your favorite flower is, this. You can't figure those things out.
Well, and these are strangers too. So Spirit gets in my truck and will say to me, "Can you run to the store and get me a daisy?" So I go in, not knowing where I'm going, and then Spirit will say, "Can you go to this next store and just walk across the parking lot?" So here I am, carrying my little daisy, not knowing where I'm going, and then somebody usually collides with, it comes in my awareness, and then I normally say to them, "I need to give you this. It's from your husband," and it's usually, "Oh my gosh, my name is Daisy," or "That was my favorite flower," or what. It's that kind of evidential mediumship. I have this rule with Spirit. It has to be evidential. It can't be, "I have your mom here and she loves you." It has to be, you have to give it to me, and that's kind of how we work together. So I agree to drive the truck, but
they do their part.
They have to give me the evidential mediumship.
Absolutely,
because it's so important. I think that it's just so important that Spirit, lets you know that they're around, and here's how they know, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Have you ever had an experience that made you slightly afraid? I've never heard of any experiences, but did you ever have an encounter with maybe a negative spirit or an entity or anything of that sort
No, I wouldn't say negative. I'll tell you why. I had to, to communicate with a few, or have some paranormal activity with a few. Yeah.
Yeah.
However, I only work in the light, and I stand in the power of a lot of protection, and I only work in the light. So if I have to deal with those kinds, I call it shenanigans, because sometimes Spirit activity, sometimes it's not what we think it is either. Right. So, but I walk only in the light, and I've never felt fear from people who have passed or any kind of entity or energy. But I do have extremely tight spiritual practices to keep me protected as well.
Right. A question that I was thinking about this the other day, and I purposely saved it for this video. And I told my mom, she said, "Oh my gosh, I wonder that too." Okay. So speaking of, let's say, I'll use my grandma as an example. Okay. My grandma's passed away, and when you saw my grams dancing with my grandpa, you said they were much younger, like maybe 40s and whatnot. Now, when we pass away, we've had previous lifetimes, right? Yep. So she wouldn't be identifying as Candace in the spirit dimension, because I'm sure in previous lifetimes she's had different names. So is she just showing herself to you as her physical form of Candace because that's what you resonate with? And if so, how do we choose, I hope this is making sense, our outer shells when we are in the spirit dimension, and do we have different names?
Oh, I love this question. Oh, I love it so much. So, number one, when they come to me, and you're right, because the soul does have a few lifetimes, right? 100% right. But she comes to you with how you knew her, right? So with her name, with how she passed, with things that were important to her, places, dates, that kind of thing, right? But when we're over in the spirit dimension, we don't have a body. Mm-hmm. But when they come through, and it changes all the time, you guys, on how I see them. Sometimes I just know, sometimes I see them. Yeah. Right? So if I see her, it's how you would have known her. So she's going to give me that information. Because, was dancing together something that they did? I don't remember. Sorry.
Yes, it was.
Okay. So if I see them dancing, they're going to show me a younger time in their life. Right. Because they're no longer old or sick or whatever that they were going through at the time of their passing. That there's none of that anymore, and they want to show us that they're happy in what they're doing. The other thing is that her soul would have had many lifetimes. Right. Some of the people that she journeyed with before are no longer in the physical world either. Right. If it was 1,000 years ago, so they're only going to come in as to how you knew them. Right.
So do we have, to your knowledge, do we have soul names when we're in heaven, or are we just we're just a soul and we just identify as that?
From what I understand, we identify as the soul.
Okay.
That's a really good question. And, I always say to people, if you have different experiences, or, if it doesn't resonate to you, that's okay. Yeah. But I don't think that we actually have the soul name
Yeah, like people aren't up there saying like, "Hey, Lana, what's up?"
We might though.
We
You know that I really can't. I know I'll never make anything fit. So that I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
When I was up there as a soul, you know, they called me by my name in this lifetime.
But your time wasn't up yet.
But my time wasn't up yet.
So you were still Lana.
So
See,
yeah,
it's a fascinating thing to think about.
It is a fascinating thing to think about. That's a really
right.
good one.
I was laying in bed. I'm an overthinker, and I was like, so is she Candace, or does she have a different name? And what's that name? And how is it up there? Like you can think about it.
Yeah, you know what? The next time I go to council and they have some extra time with me, I'm gonna ask that question, Hailey. That's a really
you should
good
make a
one.
video on it.
I should make a video.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe to her channel because if she gets an answer from council, she'll make a video on it.
That's a really good one.
And then another question I had in that same realm was, so you know how we can choose, like let's say for example, we haven't learned all our lessons, we go back down for another lifetime. So let's say my grandma's up there and she's decided I want to go down for another lifetime and my time is up and I pass. Will her spirit and soul still be there for me, or is her spirit and soul on Earth?
Ooh, that's another good one. So there are a few things. I have studied past lives.
Right.
I am certified to do past life regressions. And this is a very interesting topic.
Right.
Now, there are things that can change as well, right? But remember, there's no time in the physical or in the spirit world, sorry.
Right.
Time is man-made. So, you know, if we live to be 80, it doesn't exist up there.
Right.
Now, for the most part, we come here as a soul family. So we have a group of souls that said, I'm going to be your mom, this is going to be the dad, these are the family that you're going to have as a soul family. And in your soul family, you agree to come here. You have contracts, soul contracts.
Right.
So when you go up, your soul family that's already passed will be there. But the soul can also split. The soul can have more than one journey. You can have more than one experience. So somebody can reincarnate.
Right.
With the regression work that I've done, and with some of the other people who've dedicated their lives to study regression, the theory is that we don't normally have another lifetime until our soul family is back up. But
fascinating.
But there are exceptions. So you can say, you know what? I'll be here by the time you come back. I'm gonna go.
I'll skip the next one. I'll see you in the third.
Think about it. If I pass and my family is still down here living and they live for 80 years, I could go and have another lifetime. You know, what if I only needed to live until I was 3 years old?
Do you know what? That's I was just thinking that as you were speaking.
Yeah.
That could also explain souls who come down for a brief period.
That's right.
To
evolve.
Play a pivotal point in somebody's life who's going to live longer, but then on top of that still go back. You just blew my mind because that was the answer I never thought of, but it makes so much sense.
But the soul can have other, and this is I love soul topics because it's just so juicy.
Yeah.
The soul can have more than one experience too. And think about this for just a second. If you ever felt that a part of you was living somewhere else, like you were really, really connected to Ireland and you just felt like there was a home there, a part of your soul could be having an experience there too.
Fascinating.
It is fascinating. You could be having more than one experience. And I think that for some of these top questions, I don't think we'll know 100% until we get there. But with a lot of the work and studying that I do with the soul and soul contracts, that tends to be the direction that I've been pointed to.
So then that leads me into a question because my mind's going a million miles a minute. And so for an example, could that also lead into, let's say that there's a residual haunting. So you'll see the spirit who's going about its daily tasks, like a pioneer woman who still is in the space that she thought was once there.
Okay.
Could that be a portion of somebody's soul who has actually crossed on, but they're so powerful that like their soul was so strong that their energy still remains in the space?
Yeah, and there are that's another delicious topic. There's a few reasons for that. Number one, sometimes they have chosen to stay.
Okay.
Sometimes a part of them stays.
Right.
Sometimes they visit in and out, and sometimes they haven't crossed over.
Interesting. And just from a medium's point of view and from your experience in talking with the dead, what is some of the biggest reasons that souls are unable to cross over or stay within the physical dimension?
Well, when I've communicated with those souls, sometimes it's just as simple as they didn't want to go.
Right.
And they couldn't find their way. And, and the soul kind of becomes, it's like grounded spirits. They kind of have attached themselves to a situation or a place. Quite often it's the traumatic or tragic death.
Right.
Or if somebody felt that they didn't get justice in their physical world, they will stay. Sometimes it's, visits, and then we think that they're trapped, because quite often I'll go in to talk to a spirit and I'll say, listen, you're acting up.
Yeah.
You want to tell me what's going on? And they're like, oh, we're just visiting and we're trying to get their attention to let them know that I'm here. And they'll give me information about who they are, and people are like, oh my gosh, that was my brother, and he's just visiting. Sometimes it's not that they're stuck, but yeah, sometimes they do not cross.
Right. And actually, something that Lana does is she's able to cross on spirits. Do you want to briefly? I know you'll probably do an entire video on that.
Yes, and there's some fun. There will be some opportunities that I hope that we get to kind of.
We're hoping. Well, we're going to. We're hoping that Lana will have the opportunity to actually show you guys in a video how she opens up that what would you even call it? Like a portal and crosses on the spirits.
I'll tell you a little. I'll try to make it as quick as possible. But an example is like opening a doorway into the spirit dimensions.
Right.
So I came across a young man whose passing was quite tragic. He didn't mean to.
Right.
And he was very angry. So here he is, a little soul looking at his body that's dead, and he became extremely angry and refused to cross.
Right.
So he pays me a visit, and he's dumping his anger on me. And, and he's very frustrated, and can't you do anything? And I'm like, no, I can't do anything.
He's like, put me back.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, can't you help me out? And he refused to go, So, and he became very much a bit of a nuisance. He became very agitated. He wasn't always being very kind to me. So I opened the portal, and what I did was, number one, I called through the gatekeeper, who kind of, yes, security in heaven. And then, but what I did is I asked the gatekeeper to go and get someone that was very dear to this young man's heart, and he went and got his deceased grandfather. And his deceased grandfather, literally, and it's too bad I wasn't filming it. It was, it was one of those things you just don't think of doing. Mm-hmm. His deceased grandfather reached his hand through.
Wow. And
asked him to take it, and literally talked him into crossing over.
Wow.
But you can make portals quite often with spirits who have been grounded here a long time and buildings are torn down, or they don't want to leave a building. You can open a portal and call forward some light to guide them over.
Yeah, as I mentioned, you guys, I'm sure she'll do an entire video on it, but we have some places that we're going to be investigating, and if there are stuck spirits that we are made aware of through Lana, then Lana hopes to open up the portal and cross them on.
I'm going to come prepared to open up a portal. It does happen, and quite often, and it's a beautiful thing. It really is a beautiful thing. If you can just imagine being lost, just being lost, and nobody can really hear you unless you kick up some fuss, and then it's interpreted as haunting or dark. Because usually it's that they're trying to get attention.
So what do you make then of when we're talking evil forces or dark entities or possessions? Where do those energies and spirits come from in your knowledge, of course, from your personal experiences?
Well, a lot of the energy I do feel is very much earthbound. It's very much energy that, like for example, the energy of hate has a vibration.
Right.
And that vibration can gain momentum.
And manifest.
And it can manifest into a feeling. It's just like, Hailey, you ever went somewhere and thought, oh my goodness, it doesn't feel good here.
Oh, heavy.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but something bad has happened here. That energy kind of stays.
Right.
And it propels, and it kind of gains momentum because it's fed, right? Mm-hmm. Especially if it's a home where there may have been some abuse, and then that family moves out, and the next family that moves in, there may be some violence, and then that. So it kind of gains, right? It kind of gains, and it kind of gains momentum. As far as it comes to like the real dark evil stuff, I tend to have very little of it.
It's not in your reality because you don't vibrate at that level to even have experiences with things like that energy. That's right.
And the spirits that, cause I do get calls where there's and this is just my experience. Mm-hmm. I have gotten calls where there's an evil entity. It's very dark. Can you come down and bring whatever you can or whoever you can to anchor it? And I go down and I sit and I talk, and it's a soul who's had a tragic life.
Right.
And, when they start telling me their story, perhaps they were murdered, or perhaps, they tell me their story, and the hundreds of physical world years they've been here.
Right.
You know, it more has that perception that this is evil when it's just someone's soul saying, I don't want to be trapped here anymore.
Right. And I mean, especially if you're somebody who's not familiar with that, things being thrown, things moving around, maybe the feeling of being hit or whatever the nature of the haunting is, that can very easily be perceived as dark or evil or malvoyant. And at the end of the day, like you said, sometimes it is truly just a soul that's trapped and trying to make its presence known.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, and have I come across souls that were agitated? Yeah, I have. And, you know, angry? Yeah, I have. Nasty and arguing with me? Yeah, I have. but I find that because I walk with so much light,
Right.
I find that they kind of lighten up a little bit and tell me their story. And quite often that's exactly what they want, is to be, you know, they want it to be heard. Like, they want the truth known. Because sometimes, you know, if I whisper in your ear and you tell somebody, and the story comes back around and it's like nowhere near, quite often that's what spirit as well. So, you know, if there's a story, let's say 200 years ago, there was a murder here, and
Right.
by now the story's gotten quite stretched. Spirit quite often wants truth.
And you know what's interesting that she's talking about this is there's a location that I went to a few years ago. You guys may have seen the video where we went to Screaming Tunnel in Niagara Falls, and the story behind that has often had different versions of it as well. But the main story is there's a little girl who was burned or caught on fire and went into the tunnel and passed. And it would be so fascinating. We've been talking about bringing Lana there to see what the true story behind said haunting is. Because, like you said, maybe there's a child there, or maybe it's not even a child spirit who wants the truth to be told, as there's been many versions of the story.
Yeah. Because quite often they do want the truth to be told.
I would.
Yeah.
If I passed on and over the years kids were coming or people were coming to investigate my haunted space and they're not even right about my story, I think the vain part of me would be like, nah, get that right. No, I did not. That's not
Right?
what happened. Like, you want truth, and I think especially when you're more, not all knowing, but when you're out of this earthly shell and you suddenly have a new perspective, you want your legacy to be told right. I would
100%.
assume.
I would agree. I think I'd want the same too.
Yeah.
You know, but usually when I sit down with any kind of paranormal activity, usually, you know, there's a story. There's another side. There's your side, physical world side, and then there's spirit side. You know, so it is amazing to be the translator.
So if someone listening right now maybe new to all of this and wants to connect to their angels or connect to their higher self, how would you advise them to start out with something like that?
You've got to start quieting your mind a little bit. So I always say to everybody, you have a dial right here. Just kind of turn your dial, turn the volume down. A little bit of meditation.
Right.
And people always go, oh, I don't want to meditate. And I'll say, go for a walk and listen to the birds. That's meditation.
Right.
Sit and just breathe outside on your porch, quieting your mind a little bit.
Right.
And just getting used to not having 2,000 thoughts in there. Because you can't hear the angels if you got monkey brain going on.
It's my problem.
It's, you know, so, you know, and it does take a little bit of time and a little bit of practice. You know, but then you have to start asking. And that is a big thing for humans. I don't know why we struggle with asking for help. And simply saying, you know, I'm calling forward my angels or an angel or anybody with some help that can help me to come forward and sit with me and give me some guidance. Now, here's the trick. You've got to be open to receive it. You've got to watch for the signs. You've got to kind of keep your eyes and heart open, and you've got to trust. Big one. Big one.
What are some signs in your experience that angels tend to give, especially in the early stages of somebody trying to connect?
Repeat numbers is a big one. The 111, 222,
Yeah.
the angelic number realms for sure. The angels and guides tend to really pull at our own intuition.
Right.
They kind of send us those messages and you kind of feel it in your gut. And when you ask for advice, you feel it back in your gut. Little white feathers quite often with the angelic realms as well. I always kind of find the weird things that happen. All of a sudden, you know, my car broke down and, you know, all of a sudden there's somebody around, and humans can often be doubling as an angel. A message can be sent, right?
Yeah.
Through an angel. You know, it could be something as similar. I always like the story where I went into the pharmacy and the pharmacist said, don't take 69 highway. And then I went to the gas station and the gas station attendant said, don't take 69 highway. And I'm like, oh, this is really weird. These people don't even know me. And then I stopped on a route on the 400 again to get gas and don't take 69 highway. Those were messages from angels on my own safety. So when it came time to take 69 highway, I didn't take 69 highway. Like messages can come that way.
Do you know what would have happened if you took 69 highway?
Well, when I did arrive at my destination, my family came out and said, "You didn't take 69 highway," and I said, "No, it was closed down due to a major accident."
Wow.
There was like a couple transport times. Yeah.
Wow.
So those are the angels speaking. Those are the angels kind of using living people as messengers too.
Yeah, I was gonna say something that my grandma actually taught me when I was a kid is like, be kind to everybody. You never know who's an angel in disguise. And I'm curious as to, in your experience in communicating with the angels, do the angels ever manifest themselves as a physical human being that you interact with?
Yeah, 100%. I've had it happen so many times. There's actually a video on my YouTube channel about a homeless man that I was very drawn to. I have just so much room in my heart for the homeless. I love them so much. So it's not unusual for me to wander over to someone that is homeless and have a seat and kind of talk to them about their journey. And on this one particular time, it was actually an angel who knew who I was. Who knew who I was. And you can head over to my channel and have a listen to that video. Yeah,
definitely check out that video.
It's a real sweet moment. And it happens to me quite frequently where angels just appear. But I'm so open to them. Right? I'm always open. And I think that's the biggest gift you can give to yourself is being open.
So can a human soul, like per se, like of like mine or yours or somebody, become like how do angels become angels? Are they just always angels, or could like I don't know if that's making sense, but could a human soul become angelic as they evolve and they grow and they complete their soul?
There's a lot of different thoughts on this. There's a lot of different thoughts. My personal thought on that is what Spirit has shown me, and I can only share it from Spirit's perspective.
Absolutely.
But quite often the angels, there are many different types of angels as well. There's so many different types of angels. And Spirit has shown me that some of those angels did have human experiences, and their soul evolved into the angelic realms. Spirit has also shown me that some of these angels have always been these angelic beings.
Right.
And they have their own dimension, right? So, it's the same thing like people will say, are there aliens? Are there aliens? And have they always been aliens, right? So it's kind of, they do have their own soul and their own soul purpose.
Right.
So there's more than one answer to that. And I know there's many different feelings on that.
Yeah, there's so many questions that I could ask you all day. So if you guys want us to film another, like a part 2 to this with questions that you comment down below here or over on Lana's channel, definitely let us know. But the thing I want to conclude on is, do the angels or those around you have any messages for anybody that could be listening to conclude this video?
The angels always encourage us to stay true to our heart and to live from that vibration. There's a lot going on in the world today, as we're all aware of. And what's shifting and what's going to help shift that is our own light that we carry in our own hearts and shining that.
Yeah.
And there's more and more of that coming. The angels have shown me some profound things that are coming. And it's going to come from us humans coming back into our heart space. The angels and guides always want you to know they're there for you. And leaning in is the key. You simply have to lean in and say, I need a hand with that. Can you come with me? Whenever I go anywhere, I bring them in my vehicle. Come on in, guys.
That's one of my favorite things about her. She asks them to come for the ride.
That's right. I open the doors and I let them in and I let them out. And do they need me to open the door? No, they don't. But for me, it really is that powerful connection to them. It's inviting them to come with me and keep me safe.
And telling them that you are still open, you still want that relationship, and that you're okay with it. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but something that I've always felt is, your angels and guides, they never want to scare you. Like they never want to reach out or give you signs that you aren't ready for, or they feel as though may frighten you from reaching out or communicating. So if you let them know, I'm open to receiving those signs, those messages, to feeling your presence around me, you're more inclined to have an experience. You don't necessarily have to do that to get an experience. You may just receive one. But it amplifies. And one of the greatest things you can ask for, if you're a little bit unsure on whether or not you know how you feel, simply start asking for protection. Right. Who doesn't want to be protected? And I'll tell you real quickly before we wrap up here, I always ask for protection when I'm driving. And I had an experience where I was driving through a town, I had the right of way, and a 5-ton truck hit me and literally pinned my vehicle against a pole.
to the point we heard glass shatter. I was definitely against the pole. You know, I had somebody else in the vehicle with me, and I got out of the truck and I had that moment of, oh my gosh. And the 510 truck kept going, by the way. And I walked around and there was not a mark on my truck and there was no glass broken. I pulled my truck away from the pole thinking, and it was a brand new truck, but it's just material things. It's just material things. But
yeah.
But I pulled that vehicle up and there wasn't a mark on it. There's a slight scratch on my running board. But it was clearly like the shattering of the glass.
Like you heard that.
Oh yeah, we heard the glass shatter. We heard that smash.
Wow.
And I was hit driver's side. Not a mark on that truck. And that is protection. I protect my vehicle everywhere I go. Hop in. What do you really like, there's nothing really harmful and kind of just asking for safety and protection.
Yeah.
Start there. Start there and kind of grow your relationship with them. Like you got new friends.
You would absolutely be surprised how powerful we are as human beings. And, it's interesting because I've always known these things, but in talking with you and learning so much more, it's so incredible to remind ourselves, like, you are way more powerful than your earthly mind allows you to believe. And if you break that mold of sticking in, it's silly to ask your angels to get in the car, or really, what can I do asking to protect myself? But then you hear stories like that and it gives you goosebumps. Like, I was telling Lana as well, when my grandma was sick, I was watching the movie Breakthrough, and it's based on a true story where he was under the ice for longer than they even thought was humanly possible, and he came through because it wasn't his time, and they were surrounding him with light and love and healing energy. Yeah. So miracles do happen.
Miracles happen, and we are superheroes with light. We are all light workers. We came here, connected and plugged in. We came here as little beings, and just think of a baby. When you think of a baby, how connected they are. Little kids are so connected. They know certain things. We all know certain things. It's just a matter of really starting to embrace that and coming back to that.
Well, and something that I want to say before we conclude, just to throw it out there to you guys, is Lana does courses and classes on mediumship. And when I asked her a few weeks ago, are the students that you have, are they all people who have connected like you did immediately as a child? And what's so fascinating is she shared with me, she has students who never spoke to the other side ever.
No.
And after the class, they're communicating and giving readings.
And they also discover other abilities within themselves. Like some of them discover that they've got amazing healing abilities. Some of them discover that they got profound remote viewings. They teach remote viewing and they're like incredible. We all have gifts within us. And the mentoring programs that I offer kind of crack open what's already in there. Because it's already in each and every one of us. Different? Yes. In there? Absolutely.
And I'll have a link not only to Lana's YouTube channel where you can check out elaborations of all of these stories she's been sharing, but I'll also have a link to her website where you guys can book either a reading, or if you guys are interested in maybe looking into the different mentorship classes that she provides and whatnot, definitely check it out, because it's incredible the energy that you have, and even not just like here filming, but in our day-to-day lives. And I think that you guys would be lucky to work with someone like Lana. So I'm going to conclude this here because we could talk all day and this video will be 7 hours long. One thing that I am going to be showing Lana in the coming days is how she can go live on her YouTube channel as well.
Yes.
So not only subscribe to Lana, but turn on your notifications that if Lana does go live, you can join in on that live, maybe have a chance to have a family member or a loved one come through and give you a message and just hear Lana live and ask your questions live. But as I mentioned, we are going to be going out and doing some really exciting investigations at some haunted locations. And if you guys want to ask Lana more questions or us to do another video or anything of that nature, don't hesitate to comment both here and on Lana's channel and reach out. I'm sure she'll love reading your guys' experiences, questions, comments, and video ideas.
Absolutely, because we all journey together, so far away.
That's one of my favorite things she always says, is we all journey together, and it's so true and it's so brilliant. No matter where you guys live, Lana offers her services over Zoom, so it doesn't matter where you guys live. If you're not from Canada, wherever you are, reach out and see if you could book a slot, because it was truly life-changing for even Tyler. When I had my reading with you and his uncle came through, she said things that nobody could have known. Like, I'm telling you, like, it gives me goosebumps to this day. And I know Lana, and every time I think about the stories and experiences, it blows my mind. So make sure you guys ask her for any stories you want to hear of hers. And thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Miss Hailey.
This is just the first of many. As I mentioned, we wanted to share with you guys who Lana is, kind of give you a backstory so that when we go out to these places, you have a better idea of who she is, what she does, and how she's able to see and communicate the way that she does in those videos.
Some exciting times coming.
So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope that you guys really enjoyed it and you're excited to see more of us together. Make sure you subscribe to both my channel and Lana's channel. Let us know what you want to see, and we will see you guys in an upcoming video. Bye guys!